Okay, so this is part 2 about how I discovered or started learning about Sikhi. And I'll be using first names only to protect people's identity when I tell part of these stories. So as I mentioned before, I started attending Guru Nanak Dwara, and I also started attending their what they call their morning sadhana, the Aquarian sadhana, which at the time I still didn't know wasn't part of Sikhi. I started also at the same time to, for myself, complete a Sahajpat, and that is where you read our sacred text, the Shri Guru Granth Sahib, a little bit at a time every day. And so when I study a religion, I don't like to read anything about the religion. I like to go straight to the primary source. So that's what I did. I started to read because I didn't want to hear what anybody said about it. I didn't want to hear commentary. I wanted to know actually what it said. If I was going to follow a religion and study it, I wanted to know the root, which is what I do when I study all religions. I think it's important to do that. So I completed that reading 2 different translations. The first one was unfortunately, translated by a budgeonist, which at the time I didn't know. And then I read the first English translation by Dr. Gopal Singh. And I wasn't really satisfied with either of those translations, although I did start to understand a lot. But you can't understand the complete message unless you're able to read it in the original text in Gurmukhi. So then I started to do that and started to translate for myself. And it has been a very, very slow process. I'm obviously not finished. But in seeing the beauty of that and the elegance of that, compared to the things that I was being taught in the Kundalini yoga classes, I knew, like, there's no comparison. It's absolutely not the same thing. And unless you're able to read it in its original script, then I can see why you wouldn't really understand the elegance and the beauty therein. There'd be times, like, I'd be translating late night at my desk, and it'd be weeks, and I'd be trying to get the meaning of the specific line, and finally I would understand. And I would, like, slam my hand on the desk, and my husband would be like, "What's going on?" I said, "This is the most beautiful thing that I've ever read. It was incredible." And so I developed like just a deep love for what I was reading and studying. To help me understand, like I mentioned, I was teaching English to the Ragis and to some friends there at the Gurdwara, and they were helping me understand a lot and helping me with my translation. And I would ask them about things that I was learning in the yoga classes. So in the yoga classes, a lot of the time they would say this thing, Sata Nama, and we would do certain movements with that. And I asked them, "Well, what is that? Sata Nama?" And they said, "That's nothing. That's not part of Sikhi." That was going on for a while, and I was starting to understand really the differences. But at that time, I still didn't see any problems. Everybody at the Gurdwara seemed to get along, and there was no, like, really conflicts between anybody that were noticeable. So I was continuing to go to both. I thought maybe it was still sort of part of the same belief system. I wasn't sure. And then the people at the Kundalini yoga classes said that I should get a spiritual name. And I knew a lot of people that had like a different name, and they kept encouraging me to do that. So I was like, okay, well, what is this about? And I didn't really understand, but so I went on the 3HO website and I looked, and it said, oh, click here for your spiritual name, answer some questions, your birthday, are you female? And then we'll send you your spiritual name. And if you spend $40, then we'll send you your spiritual name more quickly. And I was like, well, it's kind of like just a fun thing, like ask the magic 8 balls. I just sort of was curious, like, what name are they going to send me? So of course, like, I didn't pay any money. I was just like, okay, female, my birthday, like, what spiritual name am I going to get? So I did that, and then they sent me my spiritual name, and I was like, okay, that they sent a little meaning thing with it, and I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I told a couple of people that I got that, what it was, and they're like, oh, we're so happy, that's so awesome. And then I told the Roggies, I was like, hey, so I did this thing, and I told them the name, and they were like, what? And they tried to act like nice about it. They're like, oh, that's nice, that's a nice name, but in reality, that's like, it was just some words. It wasn't like a name that you would hear in the Sikh religion, but they were nice about it. So like a few days later, maybe 2 weeks at the most later, I read something about gosh, I don't even remember, but I discovered more about 3HO. I don't remember what it was. And then I sent a message to all the people that I told my spiritual name to, and I said, I renounce my name because now I understand the meaning of all that and what it really means to change your name. And taking Amrit, like, I read and understood about that and realized that getting a name on a website had nothing to do with anything like that. So, like, I didn't change my name legal or anything. So I was like, okay, I renounce that because that's just silly crap. So honestly, like, that was a little embarrassing. That was when I first started to understand that the 3HO group over there was being a little shady. Like, that's a little bit deceitful to say, like, oh, the spiritual name is a thing and the last name will be Carr. So, and that's a last name that you take if you're Sikh. Another big turning point for me was that I went to what's called a women's camp in Espanola. It happens after solstice. Again, a lot of people at the Kundalini classes were saying, oh, you should go to solstice. It's like the greatest thing. And I didn't want to because, first of all, it was really expensive and I didn't really like the sound of it. But the women's camp was cheaper and it was like, okay, this could be an interesting thing to kind of see more into this world. I'll go. And I went. Solstice was wrapping up, so I actually went early because I was going to do seva. The next day, when the women's camp was supposed to start, I was just walking around, sort of getting to know some of the people. There were Yogi Bhajan quotes everywhere. Like, there wasn't, like, I've mentioned this before, and I could tell there that didn't have anything to do with Sikhi. There weren't any, like, Sikh people there. It was just a bunch of yoga practitioners. They were dressed in white. They were talking about Yogi Bhajan. And, like, I think the camp was supposed to be 3 or 4 days, maybe a week. I honestly don't remember, but, like, I left immediately. I paid quite a bit of money to go to the camp, but I was like, no, this isn't what I'm interested in. I want to learn about Sikhism, and this is not it. So I'm leaving. So I totally left. That was just another turning point to see that there's just such huge differences between 3HO, Sikh Dharma International, and the true Sikh religion. During this time, I'd become really good friends with Satvinder, and we spent a lot of time together talking about what was happening at the Gurdwara and how they were actually being pushed to be part of the Kundalini Yoga stuff. And he, as a Ragi, was, and the Ragi group, they were resistant, but there wasn't much that that they could do about it. So he asked me to come to a meeting, and the meeting was that Gurudev, and probably her, by pressure of her family, had decided that it would be a good idea to have the Ragis play kirtan during the Kundalini yoga classes. So she called a meeting for them, and he invited me to this meeting because he wanted me to see what was happening. And the meeting was actually quite hilarious. So it was the 3 Ragis sitting there. I had my notebook. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just want to observe and see what's going on. And then Gurudev and me. So they're playing music, and she's doing this movement where she, like, I don't want to hit anything. So going like this and like touching your fingers in the ground while they're playing. And God, I can't sing, but it was Satanam, Satanam, Waheguru, Waheguru. So she's moving around like this, and they're playing the kirtan, and she has her eyes closed, and we're all just looking at each other while she's flailing about like what is this? It was so silly. And she was just like, oh no, Yogi Bhajan said if you're moving like this, then it helps your energy, so just like keep playing and singing, and I'll just keep moving, and we'll do this for the class. And I was like, okay, I see what's going on. The Ragis came late, so it was just Gurudev and I, and I'll never forget this. She said, we really need to capitalize on them being here. And that word just stuck in my head, like, capitalize, like, then I really understood. So after the class, or the meeting for the classes, I talked to Satvinder, and I said, like, how can she make you guys do this? Like, this is clearly not what you want to do. It's not Sikh, like, and I mean, basically he was saying he's stuck in the middle. Like, what can they do? The Ragis live in houses that the 3HO family owns. They get paid by them. They get visa sponsorship by them. They're helping them with their green cards. So how could they say no? Like, they couldn't say no. So they ended up doing these classes and playing kirtan in the Kundalini yoga classes. And there's pictures of that, and I've attended those. And knowing that they didn't want to, but they were basically being bullied and manipulated into doing it, that was another turning point for me. And it made me angry to see people being treated like that. And we all still kept going to the classes because we kept getting invited. One of the classes was another turning point. I was sitting in the back with some friends and Ragis. We were like messing on our cell phones, but they were playing kirtan up at the front, and we were supposed to like hold our arms out. I don't remember if we were supposed to move our arms or something, but our arms were out, and one friend was sitting to my right, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you feeling good?" And I said, yeah. I didn't really know what he meant. Like, did I feel well? I was like, yeah. How about you? And he said, no, I don't feel good. This is bad. And the look on his face, like, broke my heart. Like, and he was like, what is this? And I knew what he meant. Like, he was feeling bad that they were doing this exercises and chants, and like, it made him feel bad, and he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't say anything about it. And gosh, that just, I'll never forget that moment. Like, a little bit after that, I stopped going to the classes because I was like, this is just, it's wrong. And at home, I know this story's going on really long, I'm sorry. At home, I was reading more and more and trying to research more, like, where are these differences coming from? My main question was, why isn't anybody talking about that these are two completely different belief systems, but they're being portrayed as the same? That was my main question. Like, why isn't anybody talking about this? And it was then that I happened upon Gursant Singh's videos. And I'm so thankful that I found those, because then I did realize, like, okay, there are people talking about these differences. It is wrong to portray them as the same thing. And I wasn't the only one, like, feeling bad and seeing these differences. So, I think this is gonna have to go into a part 3, because I'm actually, like, getting bored of my own story right now. So, part 3 will come probably tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience.